Guys, you're sitting down with potentially the two greatest cigar lounges in the United States.
Indeed.
Tobacco Grove, which you founded how long ago?
Tobacco Grove would have been 1996.
Wow. This is now your first.
Which at that time was my third retail store.
Oh, and now it's just, how many are there now?
Just one.
Okay.
Just Tobacco Grove.
Yeah. Between building Crux and managing that's enough for you?
Yeah, one's enough.
Well, Jeff, it was great to meet you this morning. Good to have you on.
Thanks for having me.
We had Tony on a couple months back, and people love Tony.
Yeah, well, he's the good-looking one.
Yeah.
You start with the good-looking one.
Yeah, and then we work our way up or down.
The way that guy that, you got to have the beauty. You got to have some of the brains. I don't know that I possess either one of those, but he does.
But here we are now.
Yeah.
Right before we started rolling this, something that's so interesting to me about the Crux story is going from retail and lounges and creating that experience and environment for the consumer and understanding them to ultimately creating your own cigars and building the Crux brand and working with one of the, most prolific cigar makers of our time. And that doesn't just happen overnight because you one day were like, at least I don't think it does, but you can tell me, I want to make a cigar. Let me call Nestor Plasencia and see if he'll just make our cigars for us. How does that even happen?
Yeah.
Where did that begin?
I really don't know how it all happens, but I do know that, there's people put in your path every day, and you look for things and indicators that move you in different directions in life. I've always done that. I've always had good support from, my friend network. And, of course, I was in Minnesota. And in Minnesota, when I started retail, it was 1992. And in our state, we had 35% tobacco tax. Had been 35% for roughly 17 years. And then over the years, I was able to build a really good business. And then, unfortunately, because we're in Minnesota, it was every time we had a budget shortfall, it was go after tobacco. And our taxes continually rose. 2005, our tobacco taxes went from 35% to 70% with a floor stock tax of 35%, which had to be payable in 10 days, or you were assessed penalties.
And you're paying on wholesale when you cut the order, when you purchase the order, and then you're paying an additional 35%.
No, it's 35 plus 35.
Okay.
Right. So the total became 70%.
Okay.
And so at that time, I had a couple retail stores. I closed one of them. I had good bailout language in the leases. We had so much inventory, and to be able to reduce that tobacco tax liability, all that. Anyway, we got through it the best we could. And what happens? Now you're down to one retail store again, and you're looking at your customer each day and saying, I know you can buy these cigars online for a lot less than what I can offer them to you, but I'm just asking, could you keep as many dollars in this community as you can so I can keep the open sign on? And so, we suffered, and it was year after year. I was doing other business stuff in real estate and different things just to make money, to keep that lounge going. What I did know is I did not want to give up that community. I did not want to give up what I'd built for all those years, and I certainly wasn't going to let, the state of Minnesota kind of take that all from me. So I didn't care. Whatever it took, I was going to keep that lounge going. And there were months where I put several $1,000s a month in it for a long, extensive period of time just to keep it going. And I'm glad I did. I mean, ultimately, you work at the legislative level, and you sit in front of tax or Senate tax committee hearings, and you state your case to get a cap, and ultimately that happened. But through all those difficult times, I'm like, I had job offers from other companies, both in this industry, outside of the industry. I'm like, man, I love this business. I don't want to get out of it, and money isn't really the driver for me.
Yeah.
It's really just staying in this industry. Now, what better way to stay in the business? Like, hey, I can't really expand a retail operation in Minnesota, but is there a possibility? I've always had this idea of kind of having a brand. But having a brand also meant, like, as a retailer, every time I thought about having a brand, I was looking at how can we develop a brand that, by a retailer that really thinks what a retailer wants.
Yeah, it works
right?
for retail. Yeah.
And so, what does a retailer want? Obviously, they want quality. They want something that stands out, but they also want to make sure that you keep that brand in stock. That your wagon's full in your warehouse, so you're not driving sales. God forbid somebody actually likes a Crux.
Yeah. We don't have any more.
Right, and then where are they going to get it? Well, they're going to find it, and so we've done. I think we've worked really hard, and we've done a pretty good job on keeping the wagon full in our warehouse in Florida, and then we look at we price protect. We want to make sure that everybody's following MAP. We do police online. We found a couple of people discount immediately. That's been changed. Like what we look at, every decision is, as a retailer, how is it going to be easier to sell Crux cigars, right? And that's how we kind of designed our packaging, and having flavor icons and strength meter and some different
and
things.
refills instead of just more boxes, and
and more box sales. And then we talk, but a lot of it is just asking retailers like you, hey, what can we do better?
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I don't need all these fancy dress boxes every time I order, because they're heavy, and I don't want to pay all the the freight charges on it. All right, well, we can sell you 20 cigars and a brick of 4 or 5 packs, and so and you'll see those innovations continue for the next 3 to 5 years. We got a lot of stuff in the works.
But Crux didn't always look like this, right? How long ago did this?
6 years ago.
6 years ago.
6 years ago, we did a complete rebrand.
And what was the impetus to that? Like, what made it to the point where you're like, yeah, we need to update this?
Oddly enough, it was a trade show, one of the PCA shows, and we had a 10-foot wall that's all that was on it was a Crux graphic that just said Crux. Okay. And there's a guy standing maybe 30 feet away, and my cousin Casey, finally Casey walks up to him and says, "Yeah, I know you've been standing there kind of like looking at our booth the whole time." He's like, "Can I bring you in and show you?" He goes, No, I'm good. I'm just standing here. I've been standing here just trying to figure out what that says." and
that'll inspire some change.
And he told me that, and I'm like, oh no, and that's on a 10-foot wall. Now you bring it into a humidor when it's on a 2-inch band, So I think there's a certain customer that loved it, but we then said, well, what do we got to do? So we went and tested it. It was out. It was really, I thought it was great stuff, but like it was a sea of brown in a humidor of a sea of brown, and so then we hired a company to kind of test it, and they're like, yeah, this is going to get lost in the humidor every time. So you can make a good cigar, but there's got to be something that just kind of draws you in as well, particularly a new brand. Now we're 10 years in the business, but we're still infants in diapers in this industry compared to a lot of these other companies. And so we're looking at how can we build a long-term, and we also want to make sure, are we going to be able to connect with the next generation of cigar smoker that's coming down? And the younger generation is where we found connected with 100%. Our new branding. And that's where our business is going to be. So we had it tested with cigar enthusiasts, non-cigar enthusiasts, and came up with a color palette, stripped down our brand logo, our iconography, just about everything, and this is what we came up with.
I love it. Yeah, it's like, especially at Creekside, we have a younger demographic than I would say a lot of shops. Crux does really well there, and we get a lot of comments on the packaging. Also, for the fact that people they don't feel the pressure to go ask someone for everything when they can get a quick synopsis on the box. They can figure out, is this mild, medium, or full-bodied? That's kind of like what I need to know if I've never heard of the brand. And so they can kind of shop it by themselves. Yeah. And then if they want the help, if they want that, they can get it. But I found with like newer smokers, they've really enjoyed it. And then a lot of our like older generation that smoke more like legacy and heritage, like big name brands, like they find it like fun and cool to like try something new, it feels like fresh, and it's different than everything else in the humidor. And anyway, and then a lot of them met Tony, and the rest is history. But yeah, I've always loved the packaging.
Do you think the younger clientele? Do you think? I mean, it's just different. Obviously, they have access to. I mean, now they have AI, right? So they have. I mean, access to all the information all the time. Do you feel like when they come in the store that they are less inclined to ask questions, and they want to be able to discover prior to coming in the store, or do they kind of come in and lean on your staff to say, hey, I'm a young at this, there's so much information online, tell me what to buy?
I actually think it's the latter. Like there is a group of people that come in and just want to be alone, and that's where I think Crux is able to sell itself, if you've never heard of it. But I don't know, ever since we started doing a lot of this content more regularly and talking about these brands and our opinions on them, and why we like them, why we don't, like just being really authentic and open with like our experience with the cigars, people are like coming into Creekside now with like notes. Okay, I want this one, you talked about this one, I want the one that tastes like this that you guys talked about that one time.
Okay.
And so they're like they're doing their research before, and then they're coming in to buy them and then experience them, which I think is great, because at the same time there are people that come in and they're like, talk to me, tell me everything I need to know.
Right.
Which then we'll sit down with them or walk them through the humidor and get them set up. But it's really cool to have that ability to reach our consumers before they enter the door, and already start to build that relationship with them, and start to share like our knowledge or opinions, I would say. And then by the time they come in, they're like ready to go. And it's like, if you don't know, we'll teach you when you're here. And if you do all the research before, then you can come in and like still a great time. But we do have a heavy, I would say our team works a lot directly with the customer on like introducing them to new stuff. Like our humidor is fairly fresh as far as lower percentage of the shelf space is your legacy brands, and higher percentages more boutique, smaller brands. And so it requires more, dialogue with the guys in the staff in the shop. But yeah.
Well, I'd like to carry on this conversation, outside of this podcast as well. It's just important, I worry about the next generation for our industry.
Yeah.
However, I've talked to some. I had a conversation with some larger companies, and they're kind of feeling like there's a beginning of a resurgence of some new cigar smokers.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm going to ask you. But like when I started, it was 18. It was 18 up until just a handful of years ago.
Yeah, it was 18 when I started smoking too, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, everybody came in, they'd buy a cigar, they'd go to the casino, they, might go to a strip club or something, whatever. But it was kind of that rite of passage. I'm 18, let me experience the thing. And then, some of them would go to college and some of them wouldn't, but at least they were introduced to handmade cigars, and they'd come in as friends, because they're always intimidated when they used to come to these old cigar stores. I feel like the younger guys that are building cigar stores out are making them more vibrant and more approachable, and making people feel more welcome instead of that good old boys network. And so
100%.
Yeah, I know that's what your business is.
That's the model. Yeah, for us at least, is hospitality, service. Make it a really nice place, but really disarming at the same time through the service. But also maybe you're in a hotel lobby feel or a cafe, and less of like a very traditional cigar lounge, which was all done really intentionally to like I'm a younger guy in the industry, and I can't say that for both of my partners, but this next generation of cigar smokers is who's going to be our client for the next 10, 20 plus years, and we want them to be able to come in. And honestly, one of my favorite type of customer we get is somebody who's like, I'm just like interested in cigars, or like a friend brings them in, and then they feel so comfortable, and like maybe they didn't love the cigar their first time smoking, they're like, I don't taste like smoke, but they felt like comfortable, safe in the environment to like want to learn more. And now we see this all the time. They come back all of a sudden every Tuesday, Bob's back in here or Jim's back in here, and it's like they're coming back, they're asking questions, and it's like that's part of that community building that is so satisfying, of having a physical presence.
this is where I think like someone like you should be on the PCA board.
Jeff, I applied and I got denied.
All right, so I'm just saying, I'm going to make a push. And listen, our board is great. There's no doubt about it. But we need a young, fresh perspective. When I say I worry about the next generation, it's for our industry, but it's also for the next generation. It's for their mental health.
Yes.
And obviously, if somebody that one of my kids has dealt with, and still dealing with depression.
Yeah.
Went through that whole COVID period of time where he was isolated. He couldn't see his friends. All these kids were obviously playing video games, heavy doses of dopamine, and then they're on their screens and iPads, and you got dopamine affirmation. But what it is just, there's no, it's avoidance, it's escapism, and all that dopamine fix all the time it just knocks down your ability to focus, and that's why first-year dropouts in colleges are at an all-time high. Yep. That's why enrollment at universities is at an all-time low. The one thing these kids aren't doing unless they're playing sports, let's say in high school or college, is they're not really getting together. When they do, it's through apps, it's through video games, it's through all these things. And so what's important is inclusion. This next generation needs inclusion, but they need real human connection, not on screens, but that togetherness, right? And there's nothing better to do that than light up a cigar for an hour and a half. And it just takes one going into a store like yours who can say, hey, I was very intimidated going to the store. And then he tells his friends, because the next generation loves to discover things. Hey, and then the next guy comes in. And then creating ways and places for those guys to enjoy those cigars together. So I'm just saying, cigars for the next generation could save the next generation because of that time together and having real conversations about real life and talking through things, right? And that's what I worry about. And that's why my hat is off to you. That's why someone like you needs to be on the board to spread that word that, hey, this is every retail store in the country, when they see a young guy come in, that is a $50,000 customer, right, or more, because of their age and that's the life of your business. But I think a lot of times, and I was that way for a while, I mean, I'm now 54 years old, but I started up my first store when I was 22 years old.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, I get what it's like to be young. I get what it was like to come to these shows, and I'd have to wear a suit every day, and people wouldn't take me seriously because I had a young-looking face to begin with, and I was 22 years old. And so now, these kids don't even like going into cigar stores because of the intimidation, And so I'm talking to all the retailers, if they see that kid coming in, listen, they're not coming in to steal cigars.
Yeah.
That's never been the case. And you talk to any retailer, it's never the young guys coming in, and they come in groups because they need support, because they're nervous coming in, So
I still remember I'm born and raised South Florida, and I still remember going to buy my first cigar when I was 18, walking into this like really nice lounge in South Florida, and walked in first time ever. Like, I'd been in the cigar lounge with my dad a couple times, like he's grabbing cigars, but I have no idea like what I'm gonna grab from in here at all. And immediately met with like I got boxers older than you, and it's like, okay, am I allowed to buy a cigar if I'm of legal age? Yeah. You're gonna want something.
Thanks.
You're gonna want this. You're gonna want this. Here you go. And I never went back to that shop to buy a cigar because it just felt like, it was a nice place. He had a ton of cigars, great selection, but I remember feeling that's not a shop for me. And so I'll go find another one where I'm comfortable, or
absolutely,
I'll go with friends who go to one regularly so that they're comfortable, and then I can just like plug into that one, and it's like under the radar, no worries. And so, when even down to when we hire staff at Creekside, I don't care how much you know about cigars. You should like them because you're gonna be around them all day. Right. You should want to know a lot about them, and we can teach you stuff about them. And all of the cool part about the sales reps and brands is them coming to the shop and educating and talking about the blends and talking about the brands. But what I really need from you is like that you just want to like serve people, that you really care about them having a great experience and about them feeling welcomed here and about their ashtray being clear and about water being put on their table. And, you know, if they have questions about cigars, you can go there and geek out with them when you want to, but you like know that line, like that's your main driver for being here. You're going to like succeed working at Creekside. If you just want to come in here and like, cause you know everything about cigars and you scoff at some brands and you love other ones and that's kind of your shtick, it's going to be a really quick ride here. And that to me has been the magic with like our team specifically has been the magic with people coming back after having a first time cigar lounge experience with us is like, they just feel comfortable. And if you can just make people feel comfortable,
yes,
they will come back.
Right.
Period.
Just connecting people.
And I love that connecting. Yeah. The human connection that doesn't exist anymore.
I tell my guys in the shop, you know, I'm not very involved in the retail like I used to be because Crux is really taken over. But I tell them when somebody comes in the first time, I don't care who they are, what age, if they're willing to enjoy a cigar in your lounge, they have to be introduced to two people sitting there. You know, take two regulars and connect the dots because that's all it is. It's to build that fabric in that community, it's all about connecting those dots. And so introduce them to two people, and then next thing you know, you'll see them the next day
sitting together, yeah,
and then they're connecting the dots. And so, and then your biggest challenge is how do I get more space?
Yeah.
You know, I mean that's what's going to happen. You know, and it's what's happened to us. You know, again and again and again. You know, and so anyway, that's kind of what I do. I was going to mention one thing because you asked about how originally I met the Plasencia family.
Yes.
So back in the day in the 1990s. And I'm very close to that family, but back in the 1990s, there was a guy by the name of Bill Bach. He owned a company, Indian Head Sales, out of Minnesota. Okay. He was friends with Nestor Plasencia Sr. and he sold a lot of bundles through Indian Head Sales, you know, nude bundles.
Okay.
Sold them, you know, countrywide. And so Nestor Sr. and this Bill Bach were good friends. And I knew Bill Bach from being in town and kind of built a relationship. He's an older guy, and he was kind of a mentor of mine in the business. And so Nestor said, hey, I'd like to get my son some experience working in a retail store. Do you know any retailers in the U.S. that might be a good fit? My son's this age and this and this. And Bill's like, you got a young retailer exactly his age in Minnesota, and let me check with them. So that's where it began. So it was Gustavo Plasencia, who's like Nestor Andre's older brother.
Okay.
They're only a few years apart. So I had Gustavo work in my retail store for 30 days at a time on a couple separate occasions, and just kind of built that rapport with the family. So now flash forward, I want to stay in the business. I want to start a brand. Like, who doesn't?
Yeah.
You know, and you know, and I'm like, but if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it the right way, as painful as it may be. And I understand this isn't going to happen overnight. It's going to take decades to really build a brand.
Yep.
And so I went to Nicaragua. I spent time in most factories. They were all gracious. I mean, you name it, from my father to Plasencia, Jerusalem. I mean, every factory you can think of. Yeah, come on in, take a look. I learned a lot about Oliva. I mean, all these guys. And what it came down to is like, okay, well, with Plasencia, I've got that family, but they're the largest premium tobacco growers in the world. In Honduras and Nicaragua, and they are the most gracious people.
Yeah.
Most gracious people. And they said, whatever you need. You know, I mean, Senior was like, yeah, whatever he needs. They put a team with me. I had a team of 5 people right off the bat. I barely had 2 nickels to rub together. And they said, we'll make this work for you,
wow.
You know. And so that, you know, that I owe a lot to them, you know. And so, and then we picked up another manufacturing partner with AJ.
Yep.
We've been contacted by just about every other maker to collaborate on things, and we're working on a number of things. But all of those doors were opened by the Plasencia family, and they made it. I'm not saying they made it easy, but they made that part of it easy.
Yeah.
But then really needed to learn. I didn't want to be one of those guys that said, "Oh yeah, I blend the cigars," and meaning
A, B, C, or D.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, pick one.
Yeah.
And so I spent 2 years in Nicaragua. I mean, I was there every month, at least 3 months a year.
Wow.
Just learning that piece of the business, and we're unique with Plasencia. We do buy other tobacco and bring it in. We use a lot of Plasencia tobacco because it's great tobacco. So do a lot of these other companies. But anyway,
You have your own tobacco with them.
that's where it all started. And we talk. Nestor Andres now become very close. He's really like a brother, and we talk about the industry at retail at every level of the industry, and we can learn from each other. I could sit there next to him for a year to try to learn more about tobacco and growing and all that kind of stuff. But it should be a drop in the bucket of what he knows. So that part's been really fun. And then I love everything he's doing is about innovation in in farming and his organic project. All these things he's looking at years down the road for the next generations, which is in alignment with what I look for. I mean, I have kids. Do they want to be in the cigar business? Who knows? I mean, my oldest is a junior in high school, but I have cousins in the business, like Tony, who and Casey, and they're younger, by a lot.
Really, Tony is?
Yeah, Tony. I don't know. Maybe if he's at least 15 years younger. Casey, I hang out with Casey, and we're out in public, and people will go, "Oh, is this your dad?" And I'm like, "Wait a minute, I have hair. That guy doesn't even have any hair. I mean, how does that work?" But
that's hilarious.
Whatever. But anyway, so we got family, and then everybody else has been now working with us. We're blessed to have is in this company now. It's been great, and I picked up some great mentorship. I have one partner in the business who's been a friend for many, many years, very successful guy, and he's like, "Hey, if you want to take this company to the next level, let's talk." And he's with us here today too.
Wow.
So I've been very blessed. I see where this industry is going. I see guys like you as the way we're going to get there, and these cigars are the way we're going to save the children. Yeah. This is how we're going to save the children. It sounds
That's a hell of a
terrible
compelling
to say,
message.
but it's true. This is how we're going to save the children. This is how they're going to get together. It's not, they're not getting together using THC products and obviously they're not drinking alcohol anymore. They're going more into the THC.
Yep.
Those aren't real conversations, I mean, even have a drink, have a cigar. I mean, you're not altering your state of mind,
right.
So I really am worried about it. So I keep repeating myself. But that's why I'm going to push for you to get on that PCA
Let's
board.
go. Let's do it.
You got to do it.
Yeah. Well, this has been greght. I could talk to you for probably another hour.
I could too.
There'll be
I want to learn from you.
There'll be a part
that's
two
why
here.
I want to talk to you. And then we go heads up. Is it tonight?
Tonight at 6 p.m.
Why don't you explain what that
is? It's the heavyweight battle. Best of the Leaf Awards. A lot of the people watching, cast their votes a couple months ago whenever this came out. But yeah, it's both of our lounges are in the running for this. There's a handful of others. I think there's 6 or 7 others. They do it by region. So we're really paired up because we're the Midwest.
We are.
Yeah, we're we're right in there. So we'll see how that goes later today, Jeff.
And I mean it. And if you don't, I hope I win.
Yeah.
I just hope one of us wins.
Yes, I'm aligned to that.
One.
I'm aligned to that. I hope one of us wins.
Oh, for sure.
Well, Jeff, thanks so much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And looking forward to smoking more cigars together and
Me too.
chatting soon.
All right,
Thank you.
brother.
All right, y'all. Thanks, y'all, for watching.
Yeah.
Talk to you guys soon. Peace.